So you may have noticed lately that a lot of my content has had some Sonic the Hedgehog related aspect in it one way or another, and if you've been following my social media pages, links in the description, you'll have noticed that I've been talking about the franchise quite a lot, and I felt that I should make a video explaining why that is the case. You see, for the past several months, my interest in Sonic has been through the roof, although if you've known me for a long time, you'll know that this is most certainly a recent development indeed, and I would like to tell you all how this came to be. To do so, I need to establish where it all began, so let's get on with it. This is my entire history with the Sonic the Hedgehog franchise. It all started in the final days of 2008 when I got Sonic Rush as a Christmas present. However, this here is not actually my original copy of the game, as I lost the game card at some point. Furthermore, I don't really remember my first experiences with the game at all, but surely I had to have liked the game if I decided to continue being interested in the series in the years to come. And naturally, Blaze became one of my favorite characters. Fascinated by her design, traits, and origin story, with Sonic going on to become my favorite of all the popular Sonic ships after I'd begun to wrap my head around the concept. Moving on now, 2009 came and went, and this was a fairly uneventful year for me when it comes to Sonic games, although it was during said year that Sonic Classic Collection was released for the DS, and I do remember picking this game up at some point because this was how I had played the Genesis games, albeit not a whole lot, and I don't seem to have it anymore. Also, I remember downloading the demo for Mario and Sonic at the Olympic Winter Games on that same system, and then eventually going on to pick up the game for both it and my Wii. Although, is it a hot take for me to say that I actually kind of prefer the former? At least, I don't really seem to remember enjoying the Wii version as much, anyways. And one last thing to mention here is I think technically I had gotten the original Beijing game on the Wii before I played Rush, although I don't really consider that to be my first true Sonic experience, seeing that it was a crossover and not even a platformer either. The first half of 2010 was also fairly uneventful when it comes to me and Sonic games, I would say, but things were about to change come that fall. Sonic 4 Episode 1 and Sonic Colors released about a month apart from each other, and I think I downloaded the former game to my Wii in very short order afterwards, but the latter was another Christmas present from the same family members that gave me Rush, in fact. I had also gotten it for the DS as well at some point, but once again, I lost the cart and I only have the box to show for it, unfortunately. I swear the fact this kept happening to all my Sonic games for the system wasn't intentional. It just so happened that way, and I never had any buys for the series. In any case, however, I love these games, especially Colors, and throughout the end of the year and well into the opening months of 2011, I played countless hours of both games. And now we come to a pretty rough point in my life. I got kicked out of the middle school that I was going to at that time because I was something of a problematic kid, and so I didn't get to have a real summer vacation, and the same was also true of the following year. But not really helping matters, and also what's actually relevant to this video, was that a month prior to that event, Sonic Generations was announced and it was not getting a release on the Wii, which I was really upset about at the time because, well, this dumbass here didn't understand back then the fact that Nintendo was basically selling $150 potatoes and they couldn't support a game of such a caliber running on them. Also, while doing some research for this video, I found out that Sega mentioned that that was the whole idea, considering that Sonic Colors was an exclusive. You know what? That's fair enough, I guess, but I'm just wondering nowadays though why they never ported it over to the Wii U, seeing as I believe that console would have been capable enough to run the game. It's not like it really mattered all that much anyways in my case though, as I will discuss later on. But anyways, all that aside, a 3DS version of Sonic Generations was released and I was able to get my hands on it pretty shortly after I got my system as a Christmas present that year, if not having also gotten the game that same day. I don't remember 100% exactly, but other than that, I don't really have anything to say about the first few months of 2012. A few weeks before my birthday, at the tail end of April, my grandma and I were shopping at a Walmart and she let me pick up a couple of 3DS games, those being Tetris Axis and Mario & Sonic at the London 2012 Olympic Games. I enjoyed both of these, but can I just say something about the latter? And this might be another controversial opinion about this exact same spin-off series even, but I really don't think that this particular entry gets as much credit as it deserves. I believe there is the highest amount of different events that you can play this game out of the entire series. It has a really good story mode that is chock full of wonderful character interactions that I really wish that we could see more of in something like an RPG crossover game sometime, but maybe that's just me being too hopeful. And lastly, there are so many different ways that you can customize your playing experience in both solo and in multiplayer. It's really good, and definitely one of the games I had the most fun with on my 3DS, although I never did go on to get the Wii version. To be honest, I don't think I really played much else when it comes to Sonic throughout the rest of the year. I was really excited at the time for both of the new Super Mario Bros. Games that were about to drop, and especially the fact that one of them was coming to a brand new Nintendo-owned console. On the last day of 2012, I opened the box for my Wii U, and I very distinctively remember when the new year was rung in, I was playing New Super Mario Bros. U because, well, I was still way more of a Mario fan than a Sonic fan at the time. Oh, and speaking of the Wii U, one of the first games that I got for it besides that one was Sonic and All-Stars Racing Transform. I only played it for a little bit, and I didn't really like how it controlled from what I can remember, so yeah, it didn't exactly become one of my favorite games by any means at all. I think I've said everything that I possibly could about this chapter of my history with the franchise, so let's talk about what happened next. Most of this part of my life was fairly uneventful when it comes to Sonic games, and in fact, console gaming in general, because something else that I acquired near the end of 2012 was my own personal computer. Starting from the age of 14, playing games on that thing, or just using it in general, really became the primary way that I would spend my time after school or on weekends. And I think that should be pretty obvious given the sort of content that I uploaded to this channel throughout the first half of its existence. As for Sonic games that I did play in 2013, well, throughout May and June, for some reason, I randomly just decided to revisit Sonic Rush, and I 100%ed it for the first and only time in my life. And I was also playing a lot of Mario and Sonic at the Vancouver Olympic Games, apparently, according to my 3DS. I really don't think there's anything else to talk about on that front for this year, so I just want to say that I believe this was around the time when I discovered Some Call Me Johnny, who is my favorite YouTuber who makes videos about Sonic games, although that's not to say that's the only thing on his channel, and I thoroughly enjoy all of his content. I think the first video that I ever watched of his was his 50-minute Sonic 06 review, and I enjoyed it so much that it made me want to go back and binge watch all the videos that he had made up to that point, and also to keep an eye out for when he would do new reviews such as his Sonic Lost World one that he would upload a couple weeks after it was released. So yeah, shoutouts to Johnny. He is a very funny dude who knows a lot about games as well. Go check him out if you haven't yet. Speaking of Lost World and the last few months of 2013, I never actually picked up the game because all of my hype was directed towards Super Mario 3D World, because as its release drew closer, that game was looking to be something really special, and in fact, after it came out and I was able to get my hands on it near the end of the year, that's what I was playing a lot of, and that continued to be the case through the beginning of 2014. Well, mostly. I could have sworn that when I had randomly decided to play on this save file in Sonic 4 Episode 1 for a little bit, shortly after this whole interest in the franchise began, it had stated that I had played the game sometime in January of that year, but I couldn't find any other evidence that I had done so back then on my Wii message board, so you're just gonna have to take my word for it. Anyways, Sonic Boom was announced, and I didn't pick up any of the games in that sub-series, nor did I watch the TV show, at least back then anyways, although I've been told that it's actually pretty good, so I should probably go check it out. But yeah, that year itself was, like I said, pretty uneventful for me in terms of Sonic stuff. Adding on to that, I really do not have much to say about 2015 and 2016 at all, other than if I'm being honest. Sonic's 25th anniversary was a pretty big letdown. No games that were made to celebrate came out in that actual year, and nothing really happened that rejuvenated my interest in the franchise. Granted, at this point, I wasn't really playing much in the way of console games or on my 3DS anyways, as I'd alluded to at the beginning of this chapter, but I felt it necessary to say this stuff in order for it to not only be 2 minutes long. 2017 was an ever so slightly more interesting year when it came to me and Sonic because, well, again, I didn't really interact with the franchise in any significant way in the first half of the year, but then Mania and Forces were released, and the former game was, I believe, the very first in my entire life that I had ever actually purchased with my own money on the Switch eShop. and then I only proceeded to play the game through Chemical Plant Zone and then never touch it again. Mind you, it's not like I thought the game was bad or anything, but at this point in my life, I had an all-time high number of interests and hobbies fighting for my free time between the last few months of my senior year of high school and my first part-time job, which I had been hired onto in March. Sonic was probably near the bottom of the list when it came to my priorities, but again, not for lack of goodwill or anything. And that pretty much continued to hold true throughout the rest of the 2010s and even beyond for a while. This next chapter will be brief. I don't know what I can even really say about 2018, to be honest. I do not remember a single Sonic game that I played this year, like, at all. In terms of stuff that got released, there was only Sonic Mania Plus, which is basically glorified DLC. I didn't pick it up, and I didn't do so for any Sonic game that came out in the following 4 years. Not a one at all. Not Team Sonic Racing, which came out 2 days before my 20th birthday in 2019. Not Colors Ultimate, even in spite of my love for the original on Wii and DS. Not Origins, nor Frontiers. I really want to stress though that I wasn't boycotting Sonic at this time. My interest just simply wasn't there. There were no hard feelings or anything. I believe 2019 was the year where I had sort of been introduced to the IDW comics from seeing random panels posted on Twitter on occasion. However, I didn't go out of my way to actually read the full issues back then, and so just like the games, I didn't really consume any other Sonic media in general. Well, with one shining exception. I did go to see the first live-action movie when it was released in theaters in February of 2020, and I don't really remember my specific experience of watching it that day, but I didn't hate it at least, so that's something I suppose. I had thoughts about going to go see the sequel 2 years later, but I guess I just didn't have it in me to ask someone to go take me to see it. Because, well, believe it or not, at my age, I still can't drive, which is something that I need to rectify soon. I did make damn sure I went to go see the third movie though, but we'll talk more about that when we get there. Oh, we will definitely get there. I believe this was also around the time where I realized that I really love Tails. Maybe it was sooner than this, I'm not 100% sure, but it's possible that the post-credits scene of movie 1 brought to my attention that he's just so freaking cute and made me appreciate all his sprites and models and artwork. Like, I just want to give a good long hug. Peak character design right here, folks. Yoshishi Yamaguchi, bless your soul for giving us this wonderful boy, and you have my life. The only other really notable thing that I think I can mention from this period was the Sonic 30th Anniversary Symphony. That was really good. I enjoyed hearing many of Sonic's classic tunes be reimagined as orchestral pieces, and I wish I could have attended some of the concerts that they would then continue to do throughout the following years. Although, like with the second movie, I guess it just never crossed my mind to actually make plans to go to them. Oh well, it is what it is, I suppose. Now, with all that being said, let's get into the really interesting part of my Sonic story. It's time for me to discuss what's been happening in the last few years. Get comfy, because this is going to be a wild ride. So 2023 started off as being more of the same for me when it comes to Sonic, not really doing much of anything for the first half of the year with the franchise, but that was all about to change come that summer. If you've been watching my videos for the past 2 years, you'll know that I started to make videos about one of my interests not pertaining to video games, that being highways. Now, I know that that's not what you came here to listen to me talk about, but just hear me out for a minute because trust me, this is relevant in a big way. You'll see. One of the other people that shared this interest with me was the Hedgehog, whose channel I had discovered around this time because of the shoutouts that he would pay for in some videos that were uploaded to a channel called Control City Freak. At the time, he had only made 2 videos on this topic, one discussing his thoughts on a highway in North Carolina and another one reacting to said channel's videos on highways that go through the state. After the latter took off, it inspired him to make his own videos that were a direct imitation of the style of that channel, and it was a similar story for me as well. However though, before all of that, he primarily uploaded videos of the Genesis Sonic games, and in particular, he really loves Sonic 3 and Knuckles and the Blue Sphere game. He is a really good player, and I highly recommend you go to check out that stuff. I would love for him to be able to feel confident that his Sonic content has a place on the platform once again, because the world deserves more of it in my opinion. But yeah, as the rest of the year went on and Sonic Superstars would get announced and released, we would start to develop a friendship that eventually would totally change my outlook on the franchise. We'll get to that very soon though, but first, speaking of Sonic Superstars, I need to mention something about this game. When it was first announced and it released, I didn't really think much of it, and the same went for the brand new character that it introduced, Trip the Sungazer. It just kinda looked like another 2D Sonic game to me, and unlike Mania, I didn't pick it up close to its launch date. Although, would you believe me if I told you that I didn't even pick up Super Mario Bros. Wonder either, which launched just 3 days after, and at this point, my interest in that franchise still most definitely outclassed that of Sonic's by a long shot? Yeah, crazy. Absolutely crazy. But that just goes to show you what I was doing with my life 2 years ago, I suppose. On Christmas Day, the Hedgehog would start his own Discord server for like-minded people to join, and while most people naturally came to discuss highways, there were some members that did also share an interest in video games, and as 2024 would start and go on, it would grow and become one of my favorite places to hang out. Now, truthfully, that's really the only major thing of importance that happened in the first half of the year that's relevant to this video, but come the fall, something would happen that would change my entire perspective on the Sonic franchise. The date is September 18th. That night, the Hedgehog did a live stream on his YouTube channel where he would try to beat Trip's story in Sonic Superstars after he had been unable to do so after almost an entire year since the game released, and over the next couple of weeks he would do more of these streams as he still found himself unable to overcome this challenge even after multiple hours of grueling dedication, with one of his attempts resulting in a death right before he was about to land the final hit. That was extremely painful to watch, and I'm sure he was totally devastated on the inside when it happened. I certainly was. However, just 20 minutes after that, he was able to find success, but the game still wasn't over just yet, for he still had the true final boss to overcome. After the credits rolled from having finished Trip's story, he attempted this battle a few times to no avail, and the day after that, he did a whole entire stream where that continued to be the case. Eventually, he would go on to beat that boss on his own time, although that's still not where this story ends. On October 1st, he would do another Superstars stream where he replayed random levels in the game with Trip, and ultimately, these streams triggered something in my mind. I had become obsessed with this character, and I did not think that Sonic Superstars was just another Sonic game. I would go on to watch several videos reviewing the game and talking about Trip as a character, delving into her creation, what makes her tick, and all that jazz. It was truly something that I had never done in all the years that I had at least been somewhat interested in this franchise. I'm pretty sure I couldn't even say the same thing about Tails, or Blaze, or any of my other favorite characters, and I think that speaks volumes about what had just happened. I went on the Switch eShop and bought the game, where mind you, it was still full price. Not exactly a very wise decision, but the thing is, that's also the case for Steam, which is the only other place where I would have been able to buy the game, and even then, it's not like I have the space on my computer to be able to install it onto. I even made a completely original composition based on Trip's personality, which was also something I hadn't done before, not even for the Mario series. But the point is, yeah, now my feelings on Sonic had completely changed and I was essentially just as interested in the series as I had been about Mario for nearly 17 years, and I would go on to start talking about a lot more on both Twitter and Discord, which segues nicely into the next point of discussion. A couple of weeks after that last Hedgehog stream, I saw many people on the former platform say that they were going to leave in favor of a site called Blue Sky. I had heard that name tossed around a couple of times in the previous year or so that it had been up and running, but the thing is that it was only open to people who had received an invitation to be able to create an account, and I had not been one of those people, at least not to my memory anyways. That had no longer been the case for several months by this point, so I decided to jump on the bandwagon, and this was another life-changing event for me. Aside from this channel, Blue Skies is a place on the internet where I have the largest following, beating out my Twitter account by a factor of 5. I like to think that part of that is because of me sharing my love for the franchise, as well as partaking in a new hobby starting a month later, that being digital drawing, with my first piece being this Yoshi that I completed on the night of November 12th. A week before that, I had come up with this concept art of an original character called Glacier the Siberian Husky, who at the time was just simply a Tails recolor but with only one tail instead, and my, well, let's call it the final design, would not contain those iconic bangs. We'll talk more about him in just a little bit, but for now though, speaking of Blue Sky, something that happened around the same time was that the user Pedar, who runs an account on there dedicated to posting an image of Tangle the Lemur every day, suggested that I should do the same for Trip, seeing as my reaction to her being in the Knuckles 30th anniversary comic had gotten the attention of the official IDW publishing account. And so I made the account on the 18th of that month, going on to successfully make a post every day on it for about 6 months before I unfortunately forgot one time. And then again a month later. Oops. In any case though, on the 23rd, my copy of the aforementioned comic arrived, and the next day I recorded a video of me reading the comic and then uploaded it here. Also on that same day that I got the book, the artist Kaigo Mash 46 had set up an art raffle which closed 2 weeks later, and I entered my prototype art for Glacier. Unfortunately, I was not selected as a winner, but it motivated me to actually draw my character for the first time, and so I did. And yeah, let's just say that I like how all of these wonderful people whose work you're seeing on the screen right now have drawn him way better than that. And yeah, as I kind of alluded to before, his design is pretty basic, but keep in mind that this was the first character I had ever created, and again, as I just mentioned, I'm still learning about art, so cut me a bit of slack. Besides, one thing that I really wanted to do with him was sort of use him as a vessel to tell stories with the canon characters. Now, I didn't necessarily create him to be my Sona per se, although I did devise relationships with him that line up accurately with my opinions on some characters. Like the fact that Tails is his best friend, seeing Cream as almost a younger sister to him, and having a crush on Trip. But on the other hand, I decided that he was afraid of characters like Shadow and Surge the Tenrec, and having a burning hatred for Dr. Eggman, which are characters that I do like to a certain degree, but aren't really my favorites. Speaking of Shadow, let's talk about him for a little bit. So, on October 25th, Sonic X Shadow Generations had been released, finally giving me a chance to experience the original game remastered alongside his brand new campaign. However, as of the writing of this script, I still have yet to buy the game as I'm planning to get it on the Switch too, and in hindsight, I'm kinda glad that I didn't pick it up for the original Switch, seeing what happened regarding the lack of an upgrade system for those that did. And the other big thing to mention in that same topical vein as we finally come to the end of 2024 is that on December 20th, Sonic Movie 3 would be released, and I went to go see it at my local theater a few days afterward, and it was awesome. Aside from a few scenes with Eggman towards the beginning, I really enjoyed the whole thing, and of course, every time that Tails appeared on the screen, I was just so happy. It's just a real damn shame that Disney got jealous that their inferior movie was getting outperformed at the box office, and did some real shady things in order to turn the tide in their favor. Alright, here we are. It's time to start talking about what's been happening this year. We've still got a pretty long ways to go because even though there's still a month left of 2025 when you're seeing this, there's quite a lot to unpack. Well, not really so much in January though. I wanted to make a special art piece for Valentine's Day, but I was kind of struggling to come up with ideas for what it could be about, and of course, only having 3 months of experience, not having the confidence to make something that I would like. What I ultimately settled on was a redraw of this commission that I paid Sonic Guru for back in October last year that I wasn't quite fully happy with how it turned out, even though it was still objectively a very nice piece of art. This was more or less my original vision for the piece. When I posted it to Twitter, it got more traction than any art I'd ever posted to Blue Sky had gotten at the time, and as a result, it led me to still want to use the site consistently, even though I still prefer to post on the latter way more. I completed that drawing a couple days before the month was out, and around that same time, Frankie the Eccentric had announced that he was looking for people to join his Discord server, and I had asked if I could, and to my honest surprise, he agreed. And through that server, I would go on to meet so many new, talented, and nice people, some of which even inspired me to make this video. Lapis the Wolf, Fern, JCR1216, Misty Rat, Sparks Ignite, Typhora, Yes Arts. These are just some of the examples, and I would eventually go on to join many more servers as the months went on. Sadly, towards the end of August, as this script was nearly completed, he ultimately closed this server, but I'll never forget all the amazing memories that I had made in it while it had been around. Speaking of JCR1216, a couple days after that server had been made, I think he had been looking for people to join his podcast, or I happened to find the link to the server somehow, but in any case, on the last day of January, I joined the server, and the day after that, I participated in my first episode of the podcast, and even though I would then go on to not feature in any more of them for quite a while afterwards, I'd end up becoming one of his right-hand men in the server, and I've been having a great time in there ever since. One other thing to mention before we move on to the spring is that a few days after Valentine's Day, the user Omzi completed this drawing of tails that I had commissioned to her a few weeks prior, and to this day, I think it's still one of my favorites that I've ever received. I mean, just look how beautiful it is. March and April weren't really all that eventful either, aside from having drawn some art of my own, although one thing to note is that I believe around the beginning of the latter month, I was in a Discord voice chat in Lapis the Wolf's server, and she was playing Sonic Rumble as part of its creators program, which had been open for applications at that time. I should mention that when this game had been announced near the end of 2023, I personally hadn't been interested in it at all, but watching her play it made me realize it actually looked like a lot of fun, and I was getting excited to be able to play the game myself when it would launch on May 8th. Only for the game to be delayed indefinitely a week before that date. Why did they reveal this game so early? Anyways, on St. Patrick's Day, I had teased that I'd be making a comic about Glacier and Surge, which was to be done at some point within April, although my busy life both offline and in other communities meant that I didn't really have much time to work on it, and instead it ended up being finished on May 9th, a couple weeks before my birthday. Earlier that week, the artist Wild Dreams had completed this ref sheet for Glacier that I had commissioned about a month prior, and when my 26th birthday rolled around, I received some lovely fan art from my wonderful Blue Sky mutuals. If any of you are watching this video, thanks again so much. It really meant a lot to me. Now we come to June, which is when I had the idea to make this video, and will be the last month that I'll be talking about here, because even though there were more events that had happened over the summer that probably could be worth talking about, I think this video has already been comprehensive enough, and pretty long as a result, and there might even be more things that I'm forgetting about that I didn't even mention. So all of that could probably warrant a follow-up video to be made sometime later down the road. Other than that, it started off by me finishing what I believe so far is my best art piece to date, this redraw of Tikal's concept art from Sonic Adventure, after it took me about a week or so to make, and then a couple of days after that, I made the 200th daily trip post on Blue Sky, which happened to coincide with the launch of the Nintendo Switch 2, so that was really cool. About halfway through the month, I started a group chat on Discord where I invited some of my best friends in the community to hang out and talk about our favorite aspects of the franchise, as well as showing work-in-progress art and stuff like that. And while there have been some hiccups here and there, overall it's been a pretty good time, and I'm glad that I was able to do such a thing. Finally, of course we can't forget about Sonic's anniversary on the 23rd, which I made a mini comic to celebrate the occasion with, where I tried to shade Sonic's ball form in this last panel, and that was the first time I took a crack at doing it on anything in one of my drawings. Call it kind of anticlimactic if you want, but meh, at least it was something. And that'll be it for this video. I hope that you all have enjoyed listening to me talk about my history with the Sonic the Hedgehog franchise, and I hope that going forward I'll be able to have many more fun and memorable experiences with you all relating to our favorite Blue Hedgehog's adventures and discussing them. I'll see you all in whatever video I upload next, and until then, have a good one everybody. Bye bye.